up, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram? It is your host, OV Trev, as always. Welcome to another segment of the Black Paul Podcast. Panthers fans, what is up? Today, in honor of the NFL Draft, we're going to be breaking down the best Panthers players in the NFL history on a round-by-round basis, starting off with the 7th round, 6th, 5th, etc. Before we do, make sure to comment, like, and subscribe, and follow us on Instagram at SportRuffians. Also have another video I will be doing this week. It's going to be a pretty hilarious video. I have a poll on the Carolina Panthers fan page, basically to see that next year's draft we do have a chance to get Trevor Lawrence. Trading Christian McCaffrey is in the cards for those fans, so I will be making a video on that. But today, let's start breaking down the top players round by round in Carolina Panthers history. Starting off, of course, the captain, the best name in Carolina Panthers history, Captain Munnerlyn, cornerback out of South Carolina, round 7 in 2008. So a lot of people, especially if you've been a Panthers fan for the last 5 or 7 years, know about Captain Munnerlyn because he's always getting burnt. Now, Captain Munnerlyn was a solid player to me, an okay player overall. But the coaches loved him. Ron Rivera loved him. Marty Herney loved him because the second time Captain Munnerlyn came around, he was playing in the slot like he was supposed to. It wasn't his fault that Ron Rivera had him out there on an island, out of position, guarding top wide receivers that was just constantly getting burnt on a week-by-week basis. Every Sunday, you look at a play and you're like, who got burned? You don't even have to ask the question. You know it was Munnerlyn. Munnerlyn was undersized but was scrappy. For his career, he has 529 tackles, 10.5 sacks, 5 forced fumbles, and 12 interceptions. Not a bad career, especially for a player selected in the 7th round. But yes, Captain Munnerlyn, our best pick in the 7th round all time. Looking at our draft history since 1995, there haven't been a lot of 7th round picks that pound down for us. Captain Munnerlyn was a solid pick for that round. Now, this round, this actually gets me kind of mad because Greg Hardy, coming out of University of Mississippi in 2010, was a projected 1st round pick. But due to character concerns, a lot of people shied away, took him completely off of their draft board. But we're talking about the best 6th round pick in Panthers history, 2010, Greg Hardy, defensive end out of Mississippi. Now, he made 1 Pro Bowl in 2013. To me, Greg Hardy was the next Julius Peppers, the second coming of Julius Peppers. The fact that he got into all his legal issues was a bummer for all Carolina Panthers fans because he showed a lot of promise in his first 2 years with the Panthers, especially when we had Charles Johnson. He looked like he was going to be that guy on the opposite side, both of them wreaking havoc at the same time. But yes, had 40 sacks in his career, most of his time, if not all, except for 1 year, was played with the Panthers. After that, he went to the Cowboys after his legal issues. Now, this guy was accused and found guilty of throwing his girlfriend on the bed with loaded guns. His whole bed was loaded with guns. Threw his girlfriend on the bed and just went downhill from there, man. But he is now currently in the UFC, starting his UFC career. The Cowboys took that situation, as they do often with players, and try to turn his career around with all his legal issues. Did not pan out. They decided to release him a year after playing with them. But our best 6th round pick all time, Greg Hardy, so much lost potential, so little time. Next up, a lot of people will remember this guy, Josh Norman, for a couple of reasons. Number 1 being Odell versus Josh Norman. That's still by far the craziest Panthers game I have ever seen. The most entertaining Panthers games outside of the Super Bowls because we lost them. So to me, they're not entertaining to me anymore as much as they were as the game was being played. But Odell versus Josh Norman, best Panthers game I've ever seen. Next to the smash and dash game with Jonathan Stern and D'Angelo Williams against the Giants on Monday Night Football. That was my 2nd rank. This is number 1. But talking about Josh Norman, our best 5th round pick all time, came out of Coastal Carolina in 2012. Made the Pro Bowl in 2015. Probably our 2nd best corner of all time outside of Chris Gamble, of course. but he had a great career for us. The last 4 years, he's been arguably a top 10 corner. Top 5 corner is kind of a stretch, considering once he went to the Redskins, he just wasn't the same player. But Josh Norman, 416 career tackles, 14 picks, 12 forced fumbles, which is great for a playmaking cornerback such as Josh Norman, as well as 2 touchdowns. So a great career, will always be remembered as a Carolina Panther. Josh Norman, our best 5th-round pick all time. Next up, I cannot really comment too much on this. I remember Dante Wesley. Not a lot, but I remember him because I used to play him at safety as a kid playing Madden. Was drafted in the 4th round in 2002. If you look, just a lot of people were saying, who is this guy? I have never heard of Dante Wesley in my life. 4th round pick out of Arkansas Pine Bluff. Now, this goes to show you in our history what the 4th round has looked for us. We have found no potential in the 4th round. And that's attributed to Marty Hurney, man. I mean, he's great in the first 3 rounds. Once he gets to the 4th round, it's just not there. He winds up doing something crazy or just plain out dumb. Marty Hurney has to do a better job in the later rounds. I'll give him credit for the first 3 rounds because he is Marty Hurney, king of the draft in some people's eyes, most people's eyes, I would say, but has to do better in the 4th round. But that is Dante Wesley. Now, this next one needs no introduction. The monster, the myth, the legend, Steve Smith Sr., wide receiver out of Utah in the 2001 draft. Don't know why I had the 2003 draft, but before we break down this monster of a man, my favorite player of all time, let's talk about that 2001 draft. In that draft, that was the same time we took Dan Morgan, who was our best middle linebacker in history, you know, before John Beeson and Luke Kuechly at the time. We got Chris Jenkins in the 2nd round, and your boy right here, the monster among men, Steve Smith Sr. Now, there's too much that can be said about Steve Smith. He is 10th all-time leader in passing yards in NFL history. So let's speak volumes to that right now. Talking about the 10th best wide receiver in NFL history based off of statistics. #1 Panthers player of all time. #1 for the most return touchdowns in Panthers history as well as yards. The best returner we've ever had on the Panthers. 5-time Pro Bowler Steve Smith. Now, when you talk about tenacious, competitive, just outmost savage player, you are talking about Steve Smith. He will burn you on a play, talk trash in your face, and then throw a nasty stiff arm to you like it's nothing. That's exactly why I wouldn't be doing him justice if I didn't show a picture of Steve Smith just stiff arming the life and soul out of a man on the football field, on the gridiron. Steve Smith, #1 Panthers player of all time in my eyes. It's arguable because of our 1st round pick, but I'll get into that in a second. Steve Smith, my favorite player of all time. Have nothing but love for Steve Smith Sr., our best 3rd round pick of all time. Next up, our 2nd best receiver of all time. No one could ever fill his shoes as far as being a complimentary receiver. Muhsin Muhammad, Moose, chosen in the 2nd round in 1996 out of Michigan State. 2-time Pro Bowler, NFL receiving yards and touchdown leader in 2004. He's our 2nd all-time leader in receiving. Career stats are solid for a wide receiver in general. Now, we're talking about Steve Smith, who we've had over 10 years on our team. We have not been able to replace Muhsin Muhammad as a 2nd receiver complimentary to Steve Smith. All that time, Muhsin Muhammad was the guy. Now, he went on to have a career with the Chicago Bears, and it speaks volumes to show that we've never had a better wide receiver duo in our history outside of this. Steve Smith and probably Ted Ginn in the Super Bowl year. And then Ted Ginn wasn't even all that, but he balled out for us that year. We have been through so many wide receivers trying to replace wide receivers to help out Steve Smith. We were talking about Kerry Colbert, who's a 2nd round pick. We were talking Dwayne Jarrett. We are talking Kelvin Benjamin. None of those guys could be a greater complimentary pick. None of them turned out to be anything. And Muhsin Muhammad was the only complimentary guy we had next to Steve Smith. So shout out to the best second-round pick that we've ever had in our history in Muhsin Muhammad. Now, before we get into number one, drum roll. Not yet. I got a couple things to say about the number one pick because there are a lot of people who would put other players in this situation. Number one being Cam Newton. But in my book, our top number one overall pick of all time, Julius Peppers. Now, like I said, as Lee stated, Cam Newton be number one because he put the franchise on the map in recent years, mind you. When we were talking about 2003, 2004, we were talking about the Carolina Panthers defense, best defense that we've had all time. I'm talking Mike Rucker on the one side, Julius Peppers on the other side, Chris Gamble at corner, Mike Minter at safety, Chris Jenkins on the defensive line. That is the most talent we've had on defense at one point in time in our history. And the leader of that defense, Julius Peppers, round one out of Carolina, 2002, fourth time all-time leader in sacks, was a playmaker. He stuffed the stat sheet, even outside of sacks, with 52 forced fumbles, 11 interceptions, 5 touchdowns, a 9-time Pro Bowler, crazy monster, 2002 Defensive Rookie of the Year, and it will, if any Panthers player in their history will make the Hall of Fame, it is Julius Peppers. We are talking about a transcending defensive end who had the speed. This is before the defensive ends had the speed to get to the quarterback. Guy who ran a 4.65 at the time. Was ridiculous for a defensive end. Athletic freak. He played basketball for North Carolina as well. Julius Peppers. Can't say enough about Julius Peppers and his impact that he had on the Panthers. His second stint with the Panthers, of course, wasn't a great one, but spent a lot of time with the Chicago Bears as well as the Green Bay Packers. But to me, the number one best first-round pick we've ever had in Panthers history. Shout out to Julius Peppers. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed the draft. Like I said, that Christian McCaffrey, Trevor Lawrence video will be out soon. Make sure to comment, like, and subscribe. Follow us on YouTube and on Instagram at Sport Ruffians. Thank you all for watching. And Panthers fans, I will see you next time.